All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Doyle Buehler, and this is the Wikibrands Collective Webcast on transformation. And we've got four amazing people as part of this panel coming up, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. Sean Moffitt, Farid Mheir, Andrea Kates, and myself, who I'll all introduce shortly. But first, I want to kind of give you a quick overview of what this is and why it's important and what you're going to get out of this as well. So what is Wikibrands? First off, Wikibrands is seeking to disrupt the professional services game by becoming one of the first to build an on-demand business transformation company that builds the best independent strategists, techies, and changemakers under one roof, obsessed with helping clients anticipate and build better futures. And basically, the show is we're going to do an introduction. We've got 5 transformation episode formats, and I'm going to get into some of these details later on. But what we're going to be doing is crafting a set of expert conversations. This is the panel every 2 weeks to discuss some of the more eyebrow-raising aspects of getting companies to their next chapters through transformation, innovation, and future-proofing. Each episode will deal with a different aspect of their multi-headed transformation game, and we have 5 themes across 5 different formats, which again I'll explain further at the end. And today we're talking about transformation. This is where all the forces intersect as we discuss the many interrelated forces that work with business and digital transformation and discuss relevant topics across the leadership, technology, customer culture, and innovation change agendas of companies. We'll blend insights, predictions, and debates from seasoned pros who not only think about this stuff, but actually do it as well. All right, so let's meet our amazing guests for today. We've got Sean Moffitt, who's the mastermind behind Wikibrands, the managing director, based out of Toronto, global thought leader, author, and transformation change agent, helping businesses pivot, innovate, and future-proof themselves. Welcome, Sean.
Good to be here.
And we've got Farid Mheir, who's an enterprise architect, FMCS Digital, based out of Montreal, an accomplished digital technology consultant, helping business executives determine which technologies can solve their problems. Welcome, Farid.
Hey, good morning.
And we have Andrea Kates, managing partner, iScale, author and corporate transformation leader focused on tech-based solutions, commercialization, innovation with some of the world's leading companies. And you're based out of San Francisco, right, Andrea?
Greetings from San Francisco.
All right, welcome. And myself, I'm Doyle Buehler, based out of Australia, and I run a strategic consultancy on digital transformation for companies ready to scale and author a breakthrough, unleash your remarkable brand value, influence, and authority. All right, so welcome, panel. Cool, excited to get started here. Quickly, let's start off. Sean, what is your interpretation of transformation? If you want to start the conversation, Sean, and then we'll get that input from everybody else as well.
Oh my Lord, that's a big juicy question to start off, but I mean, it's everything, isn't it? But I mean, I think 2 big things on this one. And there's usually like some semantics around what is digital transformation, because other people use digitization or digitalization or digital transformation, and I think some of the other terms are focused more on the tech. I find transformation all about how do we take advantage of opportunities, right? Whether it's through disruption and how do I defend myself against the future, or, wow, I've got a chance to actually build a new business model or something. So at its very basic level, it's about change. It's about change throughout the entire organization, and it's about change driven by technology.
And it's very exciting too.
And it's very exciting, as you can see by my voice.
Yeah. All right, Andrea, what do you think?
So I'll jump in and give an observation, because clearly all of us are involved. I do a lot of work in the corporate where there's a lot of investment in what's already here. And so to me, what I've been observing about transformation is it's this moment between the excitement of knowing all of this change that's out there and the absolute paralysis of not knowing where to start. And so what I love about Wikibrands Collective is this is practical. These are, tried and true practitioner perspectives on what really is working. And it's not about models and buzzwords. And, the worst thing is to know lots of trends are there and not do anything about them. So one of my favorite phrases about transformation is you have to make a decision about whether it's possible to catch up or if you should just give up. that seems to be the tension is,
pass
catch up
or give up. Not pass pass up.
No, don't pass out. Catch up or give up.
Right. And I'll kind of piggyback on that. And I'm a techno geek, and I'll take the angle that no one wants to take, which is to say transformation is all about technology. Obviously, it doesn't start with technology. I'm not that bad, but the technology actually is an enabler for the transformation. And what I think, Andrea, you're saying is that most executives are not trained formally in technology, and so whatever their finance or marketing or whatever, and then technology comes in and they they're completely lost, right? What do I do with this? I didn't go to school with this. If I wanted to do this, I would have gone into engineering. I went into marketing, right? So I think transformation, the challenge is that it is technology that is business driven. So business says, I want to do technology, but I don't want to do technology. And that's kind of the challenge that we have to deal with. And, I'm a techno geek. So obviously, I'm a hammer, everything's a nail. Right.
So I'm gonna counterpoint that because I know you love intrigue here. One of the companies I work with is called Stitch Fix, and they're run by a woman named Katrina Lake. And what I think is so interesting is, in the old days when AI was not quite a thing, artificial intelligence was not quite a thing. It was like, the Turing test, and we were trying to make it a thing years ago. Well, now I actually have experienced this hunger on the part of Stitch Fix, and Katrina has a vision that's quite compelling, that it's about a customer need that can be served well by technology. So I believe what you said is exactly right. You can start with like technology forward, and all of us on this podcast are geeks. So we love the new technology, the blockchain, the AI, the machine learning, all of these things that have unfortunately become buzzwords as well. But they're real. They really can help. But I also think that people can access this the way that Stitch Fix does, where they start off with this knowledge that people want a new model for buying clothing that is both physical and digital, right? Phygital, I hate that word too. And people are, that it's a customer need. People are too embarrassed to go to a store. People don't have time to go to the mall. Lifestyles have changed. And so what I think is so interesting about this counterpoint is at Stitch Fix, for instance, it's the customer observation that there's an emerging or untapped need that's unmet. And it's like, wow, best way to serve it is algorithms. Who knew? And so they have a huge AI. They're basically an AI company in the guise of a very customer forward company. So I think it's both.
So we definitely need the technology. Are you saying we need it, or we can live without it? We can still transform without technology.
No, we need the technology.
Okay.
There's a new playing field, there's new rules, but my feeling is that you can access it either because you're geeked out on the technology first, forward, then you better find some customers, by the way, or you're geeked out on the customer need, and then you better serve it with technology.
So really the definition then is using that technology. The technology is not the end all and be all. That's the facilitator. That's how you get to that transformation state. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like the old rule I used to be a CMO, and it used to be, well, marketing's too important just to leave it up to the marketers, right? And I think in digital transformation, technology is too important just to leave it to the techies, right? Like I think for it to be really beneficial, it's got to go across the organization.
Yeah. And I mean, most of us are based in Canada. I mean, not your case, Andrea, but here in Canada, we're very good in certain pockets of technology or new technologies, but most of our clients, I think I speak for you as well, Sean, they're established retailers or professional services or manufacturers or whatever. They don't see themselves as technology leaders or disruptors or whatever, and their challenge is to do this introduction of the technology. So it's to follow the technology and say, am I ready to go use it, as opposed to developing something new like Stitch Fix.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll add one more thing, because I spent 3 years. The reason I moved to San Francisco was to work as the CEO of a SaaS company, a software as a service company that was co-founded by one of the leaders of the lean startup movement. And we developed a platform to serve people around the world in the lean startup techniques. And what was interesting is, that rule of don't be a sort of technology in search of an audience, don't be a technology in search of a customer, that you have to have that beauty between, knowing that, for instance, in our case, you could develop this amazingly geeked out platform, but if it wasn't hitting the right product market fit, there was no reason to invent it. And so, whereas I'm very excited by, what the technology can do, it always, in my opinion, has to be married with in order to what? And I've watched companies like Intel and Ford and WL Gore and Fujitsu and NASDAQ all embrace new technologies in service of, we've got to hit something. We missed mobile, we've got to get to blockchain, or we've got to figure out blockchain. Is it a thing? Or it feels like machine learning can really advance our product development. And so it's always the marriage between imagining and informing, like really having the technology strength, but also having the market strength. I'm always going to argue in favor of having them both at the same time.
But why do we actually need to create transformation? Like, what are we actually going after? Is it, the dog chasing his tail, or like, why are we doing this? And
no, well, my clients, which are there, right? They operate businesses in the real world today, and they were there way before there was anything called a digital transformation. What they're trying to do is adapt to this new technology and be competitive, and but when they do that, they're not, I think, a bit differently than what you expressed, Andrea. They're not kind of leading the way. They're kind of looking for ways to kind of jump on the train at the right time. And we have examples of, there's startups in Montreal, Frank and Oak and Lufa Farms and Essence, which were basically greenfielding this thing. They started a new business. But some of my clients, they're established retailers, and they're just looking at this and they're going, okay, my margins are this thin. I'm a grocery retailer. I want to know, when am I going to jump into this without sacrifice? If I'm too early, then I burn money. If I'm too late, then I may be disrupted. I mean, this balance.
Is it for profit? Is it for notoriety? Is it for becoming a better business? Like, why are businesses wanting to do this?
Yeah, I find, and that's this disappointing here I find the province of Quebec specifically, is they don't want to do it. I mean, they do it because their backs against the wall in most cases. Again, because we speak French, so we're the last territory that Amazon wants to get into,
but
or
France
anybody else. Yeah, but France is a 50 million, people country, and they have a large market, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we're a small little thing in this pool of North America. Anyway, so there's a bunch of barriers that keep transformation from getting to us, but when it does, it's like a tsunami. It's not like a tide; it's a wave.
Yeah.
And we're there.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, Sean, what do you think? Why do we need to do this? Why do businesses need to create a transformation program or move from where they are today?
I just building on what Farid says. I mean, I do think people get their backs up against the wall, right? A crisis is a major motivator sometimes in terms of calling companies to action. So we're probably not surprised when we hear about statistics that say, 70, 80% of digital transformations fail. Well, if you're doing it out of crisis, think about anything in life. If you do it out of crisis, you're probably not well prepared for what you're moving into. So, my research would say, the top companies that are doing this for new revenue, new branches of business and products and services, hopefully a better customer experience and some good insight. The reality is, if you look at the broad span of companies, a lot of them are trying to do it for costs and efficiencies, right? The CFO what's the most manageable thing in a corporation? It's like, I don't know if I can get that customer. I don't know if that innovation is going to work, but I totally know if I automate these jobs, I'm going to save some money. So that's kind of the most expedient route people take. And so, my hope is we get more of the people looking at this as, to what we said earlier, an enabler of good stuff, as opposed to just, let's pad our bottom line.
I have another perspective to jump in, because I think, Farid, what you said in terms of Quebec and speaking French, et cetera, since I do a lot of work globally, I'm thinking about where I work in Denmark and Latin America. I work in Colombia, and do work in Africa is pretty interesting, because it's the opposite. Here in Silicon Valley, everything has to be the latest, the greatest, the fastest. China, by the way, is moving faster than anybody. If you look at the growth in Alibaba and other companies, they're about to be huge platform plays that basically leapfrog everybody, right? But then I'll look at a place like Africa, where because of the need, I think it's less about crisis and more about basic need to leapfrog. You might not be able to get infrastructure, so you go to mobile. And how many things can you do on a flip phone? Turns out there's a lot of innovation, a lot of transformation that can happen, low cost, frugal, in economies that haven't been able to be in the game at all, because there are clever entrepreneurs that are figuring out ways to do commerce and transactions in new ways using, I'm not saying technology like capital T, all the bells and whistles, but to me, every level of technology is so important to equip everyone equally with the tools to move forward and serve the people in their markets.
Oh, fascinating. Go ahead, Farid?
Just to piggyback on your international view, Andrea, I for the past year, I've been going to France quite a bit. And we used to think that France was behind us, behind North America and in Europe in general. And I find they're doing this thing called the French Tech. I don't know if you've heard about this. And they basically federated all the investors, the startups, the incubators, all of the effort around doing this transformation, typically going through startups, and federating that at the country level. And what that does, it doesn't change the fact that startups still are, 5-person teams in Bordeaux or somewhere, in France. But what it does is it gives them scale for a startup. And so you have startups at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, every year. French Tech, the French actually brings 700 startups through their French Tech innovation. They're the second biggest delegation at CES every year for the past 2 or 3 years that they started French Tech. It's second to America. And this, I think, is when you think about transformation, is about embracing that change and kind of federating it into to make it go over the tipping point where it becomes, we could do this, and real businesses actually start to discuss with startups.
Awesome.
So what I love about this, you're not going to be able to moderate us, but I've got one more jump in. one more jump in.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can. You can hit mute. Yeah.
It's called mute.
But this is actually what I love about the Wikibrands Collective, because the realization that I think Sean, as the herder of cats in this, understood years ago and continues to lead, is that the power is, as you were just saying, Farid, the federation is part of the power, right? So I observed a blockchain project. I wasn't responsible for it, but it's public, from NASDAQ, who wanted to disintermediate themselves with blockchain. And you're thinking, that's a really bad idea, right? Their whole model was about to be disrupted. They found a startup in Paris that was a bunch, small group that had the knowledge that they needed to sort of, jumpstart their capabilities in this arena. And it was the relationship, not necessarily the big David and Goliath. It's not always the Goliath that's going to win. It's the Goliath and the David connecting and accelerating the ability to make those sparks happen. Usually, by the way, cross-industry, right? Yeah. So you don't have a bank with another bank looking at another bank. You have a bank looking at Amazon and going, oh my God, what are they going to take over next? Yeah. You look at Alibaba, what are they going to do next? And so to me, that what you were just saying about federation is really important, and why I think the Wikibrands Collective is such the right idea. Rather than a trend institute that's all knowing, it's like, okay, let's get nimble. Let's take all the wave runners and kind of tie them together and create the ship. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
And Sean, I think you're putting together with the collective guys like me in technology, or Andrea in sales and marketing, and others in HR and finance. Behind this, right? I think there's a real need for enterprises, established companies, to kind of tap into this multi-headed beast, because transformation is not just marketing or sales or technology or whatever. It's all of them, and you need all of them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's tough. It's a generalist game, isn't it? I'll let Doyle get back to moderating us, though, because we're as you can see, we're a passionate. We love the subject. So
yeah, exactly. You mentioned herding cats. We're gonna have to go
frogs in a wheelbarrow.
Try to moderate thought leaders.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we're gonna have to go into the lightning round. Okay, so I got 2 questions for you. Each you answer, and then we'll close and go from there. Okay. So starting with, let's go. I've got right to left. We'll go with Sean first, Farid, and then Andrea. Let's see. What is the number one, or is there a number one success transformation step that you would suggest? And then the second one is, what's the biggest barrier to transformation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so this is lightning round, so I'll get in quick. Having your leadership aligned is probably the number one thing that I see an ingredient or not an ingredient of transformation. So that's one big thing. Yep. And I may show a little bit of my bias here, but having a good understanding of where your customer and marketplace is, they're probably ahead of you. So knowing that and knowing how that has implications for your organization is key as well. And
the barrier? Biggest barrier?
Oh, I thought I might have included both of them, but no, I think I will add one then, in terms of, as much as we love to be strategists, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. And I think if you look at where transformation fails, it's the company rebutting whatever this new change is and throwing it back out. So making sure that you focus on culture as well in terms of change.
Perfect. Farid? What's the number one step?
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree with Sean. I will wear my techie hat without shame. From a techno standpoint, transformation, success practice is definitely about always thinking of a 3-legged stool or a triangle. When we do technology transformation, we always think of the front end, so the stuff we do with the consumer, to the consumer. We minimize what we have to do on back office kind of stuff, changes in processes, and we completely forget about operations. And this is where you kill projects. So again, barrier of adoption, change management people, number one. Number two is you have this huge budget to do your initial launch and zero money to do operation, and you don't execute. So lightning round, that's it.
Cool. All right. Thanks. Andrea.
So to set the record straight, I'm not in marketing and sales. I'm actually in commercialization of technology. No worries. It's just because I'm a woman. I'm not offended. No, that was a joke. So to me, there's 2 things. One is the positive, so I've seen in working with clients like Cisco and Bosch in Switzerland and Intel and KK Wind in Denmark and lots of companies, Corso in Latin America. The number one thing I think is the mindset of leadership to be in what we call perpetual refresh. The mindset of the understanding trends that come out of places, and I'm excited by what Wikibrands does in terms of dynamic, actionable trends, and the notion that you take these trends and you're not afraid of them. You actually catch up, you get hungry, and you put yourself into the state of hunger for perpetual refresh. Like, it's not okay to be a number cruncher anymore. You have to be a dynamic data visualization person, period, end of story, new mindset. And I think that the last thing is what I said earlier about, where, ostriches put their head in the sand, right? but ostriches cannot fly. And so to me, you have to realize that that won't work. And that works for 6 months. Everyone says, well, we can make more money, X billions of dollars just by improving on our current chip. Yeah, right. And then someone's going to come eat your lunch from the side and you weren't even paying attention. So to me, those are the two things. Be in a state of perpetual refresh and remember that ostriches can't fly.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm going to wrap up this episode of the Wikibrands Collective Transformation Webcast. Anybody can go to, if you have some questions, if you have some comments, some feedback, please go to wiki-brands.com/webcast and fire off an email or whatever the case may be. Thank you so much for joining me, Sean Moffitt, Farid Mheir, Andrea Kates, and myself, Doyle Buehler. We have some amazing shows coming up as well. Today we're talking about transformation. Next show is about scale. We're going to be talking about reinvention, future-proofing, and digitalize as well coming up very, very shortly. So again, if you learned something, please like and share or simply ask us a question and we'll respond as quickly as possible. Thank you so much, everybody. And
thank you, Doyle, for moderating.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Moderating.
And we'll see everybody online.
Yeah.